This is the eHealth Radio Network, your source for health advice on demand. And now your host, Eric Michaels.
Thanks for joining us once again here on the eHealth Radio Network. This is your host, Eric Michaels. eHealth Radio gives you the most current health information, news, and advice featuring some of the leading innovators in healthcare and wellness who are changing healthcare as we know it. For more eHealth Radio reports, we invite you to visit our main radio channel site at eHealthRadioNetwork.com. Today we're speaking with Dr. Mark Leondires, a leading advocate for LGBTQ family building equality, medical director and founder of RMA of Connecticut and Gay Parents to Be, a leading global organization in LGBTQ family building. Dr. Leondires, thanks for joining us here today on eHealth Radio.
It's a pleasure, Eric. Thank you for having me.
And you're more than welcome. Our pleasure, and thanks for your time and coming out. Now, we're going to be covering some myths here today, some of those myths that are out there. Now, first question, many believe adoption is the only way for same-sex LGBTQ single people and couples to have children. Is this true? Get into some of those details there.
That is absolutely not true. Biological parenting, where one of the LGBTQ couples or one of the people in the LGBTQ couples or the LGBTQ single person is absolutely an option. And I think it is the most desirable option by many people. Another thing just to be aware of is that it's sometimes very difficult for people of the community to adopt in different parts of the country and through different adoption agencies. And biological family building is kind of desired by both, straight and members of the community. The way that it works is if you are a woman who's a member of the LGBTQ community and you have functioning ovaries and a healthy uterus, then you would go ahead and work with a program, usually a medical program, and use your own eggs with a sperm source and conceive that way. That could be through something called artificial insemination, or even sometimes through in vitro fertilization, where we fertilize the sperm and the eggs in the laboratory. For members of the male members of the community who don't have functioning ovaries or fallopian tubes, and that they're what we call cisgender men, then they would be using an egg source or an egg donor, and they would be using a gestational carrier, or which a lot of people also identify as a surrogate to carry the baby, but the baby would be genetically linked to the man whose sperm was used. And taking it one level further in the trans community, members of the trans community have their own gametes, so they have their own sperm or they have their own eggs, so they use that starting material with the matching either sperm or egg in order to have a biologically linked child. In fact, the most recent study out there from an organization called Family Equality Council basically found that the majority of LGBTQ persons desire biological family building, and that's a big change from in the current generation of millennials compared to previous generations. So it is absolutely an option to have a biologically related child, and it is a desired pathway for most members of the LGBTQ plus community.
And certainly do appreciate your touching on that myth and clearing that up. Now, another question for you. Is it possible for both intended parents in a same-sex relationship to be genetically related to the same child?
So the answer to that is no. It is not possible for both members of people in a same-sex relationship be genetically related to the same child if they are both what we call cisgender females, meaning people born to people who identify as women who were born with ovaries and uterus, or they're both cisgender males, people born with testicles and male genitalia. It's not possible for us to combine those two entities. So let's drill down that a little bit further. It was about 5 years ago that they did report the ability to make an egg from a I'm sorry, it was about 5 years ago that they did report the ability to make use a stem cell from a mouse to make either a sperm or an egg, and that would be transformational to allow this to work. But that was research at the level of a mouse and not something we're ever going to do for human beings in the very near future. Certainly probably not in my lifetime. Nobody wants to be the first experiment for that. So at this point in time, for same-sex couples, you always need the matching sperm or the matching egg, and that's going to come from an identified donor that's been usually fully screened following Food and Drug Administration guidelines, and gone with the help of a fertility specialist or at least an OBGYN. So short answer: it is not possible for people in same-sex relationships to have genetically related children to both parents.
And thanks for the clarity there. Now, do all sperm and egg donors have to stay anonymous?
That is a great question, and sperm and egg donors do not have to stay anonymous. There's been a frame shift, actually, probably over the past 10 to 20 years about anonymity, and some of this has been driven by the fact that, Eric, you're probably aware that through properties such as, Ancestry.com and 23andMe, it's easier to find your genetic linkage through families, and that has driven a reality that we cannot guarantee anonymity of sperm and egg donors. Another thing that has happened personally at my program and at many places across the country is that for LGBTQ plus people who need a sperm or egg donor, they would like to meet the donor, and they would like to have a somewhat of a relationship with the donor, because it's very clear that their children are going to want to know more in the future. And different than infertility couples, they embrace the fact that these people, the sperm or the egg donor, are willing to help them. So they desire more of a known relationship, and these known relationships can be sometimes a friend that they identify as a sperm or an egg source. And some unique scenarios come down to, let's say if we have a same-sex male couple, one of the dads-to-be might use his sperm, and the other dad-to-be potentially could use his sister as an egg source. And then they'd be accessing the same family tree, and obviously the sister is a known quantity. As far as anonymity is concerned, anonymity is a choice in the initial, but it's not something that could be guaranteed for any donor. And more members of the LGBTQ community desire a degree of disclosure, or in fact to know their donors, and the option is out there. It does require a few extra steps in that it requires that a legal contract often be put in place so that the donor, him or herself, does not have any responsibilities to take care of the child and does not have any rights to the child. It also requires mental health consultation with either a social worker or a psychologist or psychiatrist to educate the donor on the importance of their decision, and to educate the intended parents on what it means to have somebody who is known to them and somebody who it potentially can help this child navigate their sense of self as that child grows up to adulthood. We do know the vast majority of donor conceived persons would like to have more information about their donors, and LGBTQ parents-to-be are aware of this information, so they often hope to use a donor that's willing to have future contact with the child, or is willing to have contact with them at the time of getting pregnant. So it is not true that sperm and egg donors must be anonymous. In fact, it's a choice of the intended parents and the donor, him or herself. In fact, it is a choice of the intended parents and of the donor, of him or herself, to make about anonymity. And the pendulum is swinging to less anonymity and more disclosure. And I think it's motivated both by a desire to help the child in the future and a desire to embrace these people who are helping our community have children and grow families.
Certainly insightful, and really appreciate the details today. We are with Dr. Mark Leondires, a leading advocate for LGBTQ family building equality, a medical director and founder of RMA of Connecticut, and Gay Parents to Be, a leading global organization in LGBTQ family building. He's joined us here today on eHealth Radio's Health News Channel, a part of the eHealth Radio Network. Now, Dr. Leondires, what should you base your choice of sperm or egg donor on besides looks?
So the choice of a sperm or egg donor actually should not be based on looks, and we all are visual people, so that's going to come into play. But when you're using a sperm or egg donor, you're actually accessing their family tree, their medical family tree in regards to health risks. You're also accessing their ethnic background. You're also accessing their family tree in regards to longevity. And all those things come into play. I don't know about you, Eric, but I have 3 siblings, and we don't all look alike. And to a certain degree, reproduction is a random process where 26,000 genes are combined. So when you play that kind of lottery, you don't know what you're going to get. And one of the things I say to my intended parents who are struggling finding an egg donor or a sperm donor is that you don't have that much control about who your child's going to be. And what we want to focus on first is the health of that child. And therefore, the health of the egg source or the sperm source is much more important than the looks of that person. So their family history, their genetics, and their family tree as far as traits, I think are much more important than looks alone. Because you're not getting that person. You're going to get a new combination, a new human being that's a combination of the genes of one of the intended parents and the genes of the donor, him or herself.
Certainly makes a lot of sense and some good points made there. Now, as we conclude today, one last question for you. Are surrogates, also known as gestational carriers, related to the child she carries?
So the vast majority of the time, surrogates who are also known as gestational carriers are not genetically related to the child they carry, and let's explain that a little bit. With modern in vitro fertilization, we have the ability to fertilize sperm and egg outside the body, and the vast majority of surrogates do not desire to be genetically related to the child, and they receive an embryo that was created in the laboratory as a combination of a sperm source and an egg source that is not genetically related to them. They are then carrying that child from just a number of cells to, let's say, a 7-pound baby. They are providing nutrients. They are caring for that child. They are, doing everything that pregnant women do to take a little ball of cells into a healthy, bouncing little baby, but they're not genetically related to the child. In fact, there's no blood-blood combination. In fact, there's no blood-blood communication between the human placenta and the blood flow of the gestational carrier. In fact, there's something called there's a barrier in place specifically to keep this from happening. So they are providing a tremendous amount of support, environmental support, taking care of this child, providing nutrients, good health, good activity, but they're not genetically related. There's a special type of surrogate that's known as a traditional surrogate. And in that case, and it's the vast minority of surrogates, that woman is providing both the egg and the uterus. And in that case, she would be genetically related to the child. I know that myself, I have never participated in one of those arrangements, so I can't speak personally about it, but I know they're the vast majority of surrogates. So surrogates tend to be teachers, nurses, or other people in medicine, social workers, child care providers, moms, who most usually are partnered, married, have their own family, and really liked being pregnant. And they are very happy to help another family come to life. But they walk into this process very clear that it is not their child. They're actually bringing a child into the arms of somebody who very much wants one. And it's a really beautiful process. It's a really wonderful kind of snapshot of what of giving and what two families can do for each other. So while they're not genetically related to the child, I can tell you for myself, who has two kids through from two special surrogates, those surrogates often become members of the family. And most intended parents maintain long-term relationships with their surrogate because that woman and her partner in that family provided such a tremendous gift to help bring their own family to life.
Dr. Leondires, really appreciate your joining us and clearing up some of these myths and common myths that are out there. Certainly has been helpful. If anyone wanted to connect with you or to get more information online on RMA of Connecticut, where is the best place online to do so?
Yeah, so I can be reached through Gay Parent to Be, www.gayparents2be. I can also be reached through my medical practice, www.rmact.com. So once again, you can reach me at gayparents2be.com or rmact.com. And thank you, Eric, for your time, and hopefully this was helpful for your listeners.
No question about that. Quite informative. Again, Dr. Leondires, all the best, and thanks for joining us here today on eHealth Radio.
You have a wonderful day.
And you too. We've been speaking with Dr. Mark Leondires, a leading advocate for LGBTQ family building equality, medical director and founder of RMA of Connecticut and Gay Parents to Be, a leading global organization in LGBTQ family building. And for all the details on RMA of Connecticut, visit rmact.com. And again, this has been your host, Eric Michaels, and we do thank you for your continued support of the eHealth Radio Network. Join us again soon for another episode that will help further expand your knowledge on those things that are important to your health and wellness. For more eHealth Radio reports, we invite you to visit our main radio channel site at eHealthRadioNetwork.com. And as always, we do thank you for tuning in.
Thanks for tuning in to the eHealth Radio Network. For more information or to subscribe to this podcast, visit eHealthRadioNetwork.com.